This is John W. Whitehead, author of Battlefield America, The War on the American People, bringing you a message about the state of our nation. What we're facing right now in this country is a crisis among the citizens on being able to think and speak. And the key thing about what the Founding Fathers gave us in America was the First Amendment. The First Amendment's there to guarantee the right of open public debate, disagreement. In fact, Louis Brandeis, one of the great outspoken Supreme Court judges, said the Founding Fathers weren't cowards. They weren't afraid of free speech. They were ready to stand in the gap. And if you didn't like what you hear, you didn't like it. But let's put it this way, as James Madison, who wrote the First Amendment, said, the First Amendment was written to protect the minority against the majority. What he meant by minority was that person that gets out there that no one seems to like. It's the minority, the 1% first person. Not violent, but out there on the street corner yelling and screaming about something no one wants to hear. That's what the First Amendment protects. So the key here is if it protects that person, it protects us as well. What I'm seeing happen in this country with political correctness, zero tolerance policies in schools, some of the crazy things we're seeing where people are afraid to speak, they're afraid to pronounce words. I was told by a recent group of kids in grade school that they had certain target words they could not say. They had to spell them out if they could spell them. I asked them what some of the words were. Believe it or not, one of the words was guns. They called it the G word. So I was wondering how in that school how you would teach civics, the Second Amendment, how you would tell a student over that the man we have over there, the troops over in Afghanistan carrying those weapons, what are they carrying? Are they carrying guns or G's? I think it was George Orwell who predicted all this was coming, and he said it really clearly. What we really need is the right to speak out and tell people what they don't want to hear. We want to make people think. But unfortunately, it looks like we're moving into a non-thinking culture. What amazes me about our current state of affairs, being a free speech purist, is how we're categorizing speeches into certain categories. And they're words people are afraid to speak about, or they're reported if they say it, or they're extremist if they say it. Let me give you some examples. There's offensive, politically incorrect, or unsafe speech. College campuses have become the hotbeds of student-led censorship with trigger warnings, microaggressions, red light speech policies, targeting anyone who might cause someone to feel uncomfortable, unsafe, or offended. In fact, some schools are requiring students to report students who tell jokes that might offend someone. Then there's bullying, intimidating speech, warning that school bullies become tomorrow's hate crimes. The Justice Department has led the way in urging schools to curtail bullying, going so far as to classify teasing as a form of bullying, or rude and hurtful text messages as cyberbullying. Then there's hateful speech. Hate speech, speech that attacks a person or group on the basis of attributes such as gender, ethnic origin, religion, race, disability, or sexual orientation, is the primary candidate for online censorship. In fact, some of the corporate intertech giants, which have such an important impact on influencing government and government policies, Google, Twitter, Facebook, are in the process of determining what kinds of speech will be permitted online, and they will be deleted. Then there's dangerous anti-government speech. The government right now is on a war against extremism. The Obama administration, in fact, is partnering with the technological industry to establish a task force to counter online propaganda by so-called extremists, etc. What we're going to develop, and I'm seeing it coming, is people who do not think anymore. It's what George Orwell in his book 1984 called newspeak. Newspeak. New words are made up. We hide from words. We're afraid to speak in open public forums where the First Amendment operates. Again, that's why the First Amendment is so important, why we have to keep it alive. But you know, I question lawyers. When I speak to lawyer groups and law students sometimes, they can't even tell me what's in the First Amendment. I have yet to find, in 30 years of questioning law students that come into my summer program to give me the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment, I've yet to find one who can. They're not teaching it in school anymore. One thing we have to be careful of, and this is really important, is how the First Amendment operates. It's like a steam valve. There are people out there who are angry. They're mad. They're tired of things. They want to let off steam. They want to do it in a public place. In my opinion, let them do it. What we found in former societies, and we're starting to see it in this country, if you bottle up free speech, you're going to create people who are ready to take action and get violent. And that's what's being forced right now in some situations. So how are we going to change this thing? How are we going to make sure? We're going to have to protect free speech. If we no longer have the right to tell a census worker to get off our property, if we no longer have the right to tell a police officer to get a warrant before they dare walk through our door, if we no longer have a right to stand in front of the Supreme Court wearing a protest sign, or approach an elected representative to share our views, if we no longer have the right to voice our opinions in public, no matter how hateful, prejudiced, intolerant, misguided, or politically incorrect they might be, then folks, we don't have free speech. So what does a government that oppresses free speech, whether it's in colleges, public schools we're seeing today, on street corners, you can't talk back to a police officer, what do they really want? They want docile sheep that'll march in lockstep with a police state. And the Founding Fathers said no to that. They said, folks, you have a right to tell the government to go to hell, and it's protected by our Constitution. For more information about the Rutherford Institute, visit us at www.rutherford.org.